Xenotrunks vs. Archie Silver is finally out, and oh boy, it is a doozy. A matchup everyone expected, but with a twist that no one saw coming. This episode had a lot of expectations to fill, especially since this is the first introduction of Dragon Ball's heroes, and the second introduction of Archie Sonic after Wally West vs. Archie Sonic back in 2020. Good lord, I've just been eating Pringles, so that is why I'm kind of muffled in my voice. Anyway, this intro is going to remain short because I am terrible at writing intros into my videos without spewing random crap that will make people want to click off. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. For starters, the analysis is really good. I like Jocelyn returning in the analysis. It's pretty cool since she hasn't really had a speaking role outside of Deskov or Macho Man versus Kool-Aid Man. But I do still find it a bit weird how she still doesn't have shading, while Wiz and Boomstick do. It really makes her feel out of place. But there are some things I do like. Trunks' analysis didn't really stand out, but I still enjoyed it. It was fun. As is Silver's analysis, but I think Silver's is just a little bit better as it had Boomstick losing his mind at the fact that Spawn is technically in the Archie Sonic multiverse, and that's just funny. But outside of that, it's still fairly solid stuff. I like it. Now we move on to the fight, and oh my god. This animation makes me want to cry. In a good way. In a good way. Yeah, it does just start instantly out of nowhere, but I am way more willing to forgive that here than in Wally vs. Sonic, as there's really no indication for how they got to what I can only assume to be the Cosmic Interstate. But I digress. Silver picks up a building with a psychokinesis in a pretty weird looking way, but maybe that's just because the building is a 3D model. It just looks a bit jarring to me. And Trunks uses his sword to cut it into multiple pieces, destroying it entirely. Okay, I mean, that's cool and all, but shouldn't there be people in that building? Is it abandoned? Because if not, I'm pretty sure Trunks and Silver just committed manslaughter.
Okay, moving on. Trunks then yells at Silver to stop right there, criminal scum. To which Silver replies with, "Oi, piss off, I do this all the time." Okay, they don't actually say that, but it's basically the same. While we're talking about the dialogue, it would be rude of me not to bring up the voice acting. It is really good. Shocker, I know. Kaiser Neko does a great job of reprising his role as Trunks. To me, he will always be the voice of Trunks in fan-made projects and abridged series. Standout moments for me were the rip-off line, guess the apple doesn't fall too far unless you shake the tree hard enough, and the end of your future line was also super impactful. Not really a big fan of crap baskets, though. It just feels like, hey guys, remember Dragon Ball Z Abridged? And nothing more. As for Silver, unfortunately, I don't know the name of the voice actor who portrayed him in this episode. Yet. But he also does a great job with the role. He really nails the sort of young hero voice that I always like to picture for Silver, especially in the IDW comics. The only line delivery that I am outright not a fan of is the first instance of, "It's no use!" Thankfully, they don't overuse the line, they only use it twice, but the first instance just doesn't feel that impactful compared to the second one, which is really damn good. Seriously, I don't know how they were able to make "It's no use" sound badass as hell, but they managed to do it. But if I had to pick my favorite line from Silver, I'd probably say the Kronos Control shout is the best one, but I'll get to the ending later.
The sprite work is also really good in this episode. Silver is definitely the king of sprites with how fluid and well animated he moves, especially in the scene where he redirects the two Kamehameha beams back up to where he and Trunks are. Trunks, on the other hand, does start out a little bit stiff in the opening to the animation, but he definitely moves a lot better later on in the fight.
I also really like what they do with the characters in this episode. Trunks isn't just a flying brick who punches and kicks his opponent over and over until they die. He mostly uses his sword as his main weapon. Seriously, he only uses his fists and feet like twice in the episode. Once when he punts Super Silver into space like a pro NFL player, and once when he hits Super Silver as the Super Saiyan God in a really well animated and really impactful punch. Maybe it's just because they used the Dragon Ball sound effects, but it was still really cool. Outside of those two examples, he mostly uses his sword and his energy blasts, with some other examples of equipment like the Key Sword, obviously, and a Dragon Ball Heroes card pack, surprisingly, which admittedly got a laugh out of me when I first saw the scene. I just love how he rips open the card packet like a 4-year-old who just got a Pokemon card pack, hoping to get something good, and is just disappointed at the cards he got, which just so happened to be Goku and Pan from Dragon Ball GT. Wow. Not even Dragon Ball characters like GT. The track also cutting out for just a moment, as well as Trunks' disappointed look before he reluctantly uses the cards, really elevates the joke in this scene.
So, editing cap here. I just realized that you can see Oolong in the background flying away, meaning that Trunks got him as a card and was so disappointed in the card that he just decided to toss it away for 2 better ones. Okay, that's even funnier.
Silver surprisingly does just as much as Trunks. He obviously uses his Psychokinesis as his primary attack, pulling off some pretty creative stuff like making a giant boulder to smash into Trunks and using shattered pieces of the goddamn moon as a way to keep Trunks away from him. Man, what is it with Death Battle on the Moon? It was punched out of orbit in Shadow vs. Vegeta, completely obliterated in Thor vs. Wonder Woman, broken in half in Mario vs. Sonic 2, had a chunk demolished in Black Adam vs. Apocalypse, and now this. Just saying, I think Death Battle might hate the moon. Oh, and he uses the Super Warp Ring. Once. To send them to what I can only assume is current day London. Or the setting from Dio vs. Alucard after Dio took over their world. But that's not as fun. Yeah, I know a lot of us were expecting the whole 2 characters go to other worlds a la Strange vs. Fate, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Still, it was cool to see Silver use the Warp Ring to send them to an alternate universe, which I am now only realizing is an unpopulated area, which means he probably felt guilty about helping Trunks murder all the people in that building. Moving on. Silver also redirects Trunks' Ki Blasts more than I expected him to. He does it once to Trunks when he uses the Masenko. God, that is really difficult to pronounce sometimes. And he does it another time when he redirects the Gallic Gun and the 2 Kamehameha beams into Trunks, which ends up breaking his sword, which, aside from the ending, is probably my second favorite moment in the entire animation. My favorite moment happens to be from Trunks, who, again, aside from the ending, who uses the Final Flash. I'm sorry, but just seeing a giant-ass beam similar to Vegeta's in Thor Vegeta is so cool. Especially since it's red like Super Saiyan God, and Vegeta's was purple like Ultra Ego. There's consistency, and I love it.
Speaking of, the ending. Holy shit, is it awesome. Trunks uses the Awakened Key Sword on Silver, which you can actually see it trying to turn him back into base form Silver. That's a pretty cool detail. But then Silver resists the Key Sword's powerful nullification and does the Kronos Control shout, which sounds bloody amazing. As Trunks activates the Eternal Time Labyrinth, sending Silver into the Time Labyrinth ready to be sealed away by the Key Sword. Trunks then appears before him and uses a fusion of the Sword of Hope and Awakened Key Sword to try and finish Silver off. Come on, that is just an awesome combination. Whoever came up with that idea, I'm not saying that they should be in charge of Rooster Teeth, I'm just implying it. But wait, there's more. Remember a second ago when I literally just said that Trunks uses what I'm going to dub as the Awakened Key Sword of Hope to try and finish off Silver? Well, that's because Silver uses the Time Stone, no, not the Marvel one, to rewind the Awakened Key Sword of Hope's location and then thus sending it straight to Trunks. And Trunks doesn't go down like a bitch. He straight up tries to push the blade away from his chest before Silver uses his Psychokinesis to push Trunks directly into it. Oh, and I would be remiss not to mention this, but Trunks' death scream sounds really similar to Archie Sonic's in Wally vs. Sonic, which probably means Trunks is being killed in the same way. The animation then ends with Silver floating above the dystopian city as the track fades out, similar to what Wally West did in Wally vs. Sonic. Good lord, this episode is a bit of a spiritual successor to Wally vs. Sonic, isn't it? But unlike Wally vs. Sonic, this episode has a lengthy post-analysis! Hallelujah! Although, I'm not a big fan of Boomstick calling Silver furry Kyle Reese in a disrespectful way. I don't know. Maybe it's just me and my PTSD of Death Battle not really liking Silver. Hell, they even put him on the top 10 worst Sonic characters list a while back, which kinda sucks since I really like Silver a lot. But that's just me. It's probably just me being big baby rage mad at something that doesn't really matter. But I do like how they go in depth with a lot of the matchup. Like how Silver is physically superior to Trunks in his super form, and he had much better range due to his psychokinesis. And also bringing up how the Archie Sonicverse is potentially bigger than most people think since it shares continuity with Spawn. Again, that's just funny. Oh yeah, the track. Hedge of Tomorrow slaps so damn hard. It is probably one of, if not the best track in the entire series, and I will stand by that till the day I die. Okay, it's probably not the best track in the series, but it's one of the best. But yeah, that was Xeno Trunks vs. Archie Silver, and I massively enjoyed it. I know this wasn't a normal scene-by-scene review like I normally do, but I wanted to try out something new, and honestly, I might stick with this format. I definitely think that this episode is by far my favorite in Season 9 so far, and yes, that is because of my bias for Silver. He's been climbing up the ranks of my favorite Sonic character list for like the past 2 weeks, with so much so that I would even say he's tied with Knuckles for my first favorite Sonic character of all time. Speaking of Sonic characters in Death Battle, I think we can all agree that this episode has topped Donkey Kong vs. Knuckles for the title of Best Sonic Death Battle Episode, hands down. Unfortunately, that means DK vs. Knux is slipping down to second place, but that's not bad. Change can be a good thing. Oh, and as for the next time, SpongeBob SquarePants vs. Super Friends Aquaman. I am once again hyped to no end, not because of the matchup itself, it's pretty cool, and I think it's funny as all hell, but what this means for me. For those who don't know, currently, my most wanted episode of Death Battle is Kirby vs. Superhero Squad Galactus, and now that they are using Super Friends Aquaman, that means my most wanted isn't off the table. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. If you like this, then press the like button. If you want to see more, then click the subscribe button. Also, Lucara Boy is making his own review of this episode, so that will be in the description below once he released it. Go check him out, he makes great videos. He also made a Trunks vs. Silver DBX in 1 Minute Melee review, which will also be in the description below. And he posted our live reaction to the episode, which will, once again, say it with me now, also be in the description below. Anyway, that's all, guys. I will see you in the next video, which will hopefully be my Sonic moveset video I've been working on for like the past 3 weeks.